This is The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast. Powered by Emeritus. Featuring Nebraska Volleyball assistant coach Kelly Hunter. Here's your host, Jessica Coody.
Welcome into a post-spring edition of The Dig, powered by Emeritus. I'm Jessica Coody and excited to have Kelly Hunter back in the hot seat with us. How you doing?
Good. It's been a while since I've been back here, so it's fun.
I know. Glad to have you back. Can you believe it's already mid-May?
No, I actually can't. It's gone by so fast. It's crazy.
How is this time for you guys as coaches now that you're through spring? You don't quite have recruiting just yet. Do you get a little bit of breathing time right now?
Yeah, so it's finals week this week, but half the girls are already back home already just because finals are all online or at their own pace or however teachers do it these days. But May is a dead period for recruiting, so for us as coaches, there's really not a lot we can do right now. And during dead week and finals week, we can't require any weights or activities or anything like that. So it's really kind of like a dead period as a coach. And I know a lot of people enjoy this time. They go on vacations and get back to wherever their hometown is and stuff like that. And so it's really, really quiet up until June is when the girls are back for summer school, and we've got a whole slew of summer camps this summer planned. But May is good downtime for everyone in the coaching world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because anymore it's pretty much year-round coaching, right? And you guys have the beach season and then spring and then recruiting and camps, and then, hey, it's time to start preseason. How do you find yourself to balance? How have you found the ways that help you balance that and the heavy workload throughout an entire year?
You're right. It's definitely 24/7, 12 months out of the year, and there's never a day that goes by that I know John and Jalen and myself are not thinking about Nebraska volleyball and how we're going to get better and our athletes and all of that. But for me, I'm kind of a homebody. Like I'm from Nebraska. I get to see my family, so there's nowhere that I'm trying to travel to or anything like that. I love vacations, but sometimes I'd rather just kind of hang out and clean stuff up at home and do all of that. So for me, it's kind of just relaxing, being with my people on the weekends, because that's obviously hard during the season. And with recruiting, everything's always on the weekend. So just taking time to be with my friends and family and just stay organized and kind of chill at home. I'm a homebody.
It's awesome. I think a lot of people appreciate that. So with the spring match just concluding in Kearney last week, overall, when you guys started kind of evaluating how spring went, how did you guys like what you saw from the team throughout the spring training and the spring match?
It was amazing, and we only had 2 freshmen and our 2 transfers that weren't here yet, so it was kind of a similar crew that was there, and our 2 freshmen came in January, so Skylar and Olivia were comfortable and they were ready to play and kind of get into indoor from beach, so they were excited about that. But there was not a day where I felt like oh, this is kind of an okay practice. It was so competitive, and we switched up our training just a little bit, nothing crazy, but we played a little bit more competitive 6-on-6 and did some new drills that our girls weren't used to, and so that kind of reignited the competitiveness. And everyone's watched them, they know how competitive they are, but it was a little bit kind of refreshing to have these new drills and 2 new faces in the gym, but a lot of veterans now too, because we were so young and now we're a little bit older. We have more seniors now, obviously more than last year, but yeah, like I said, there wasn't really a day where we felt like this is whatever. And then I think that really showed in the spring match, and everyone got to play and everyone was in, and it was never like anything ever skipped a beat. It was just smooth and it was great, and everyone was super competitive and fired up.
Lauren told me last week she thought that was the best spring match since she's been color commentating. Is that one of the better ones, best ones that you've been a part of? I
mean, on the bus, John and I were talking a little bit about some of like my games when we played, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember that season and I remember that year, and I kind of remembered the same. So I think I would agree with Lauren. It was really good, and like I said, there wasn't like, because we switched lineups or anything like that, there wasn't ever that kind of natural dip down. The level stayed really high, and the communication was great, and that was kind of our challenge throughout the whole spring is however we mix up everything, it's all about communicating, and you guys kind of have to be the ones to figure it out. We can't do it for you, and I think that showed in our spring match.
So I'd be curious, and probably fans would too, you come off the year where you go and play in a national championship match, and it was disappointing in the end, but you had just an incredible season all year long. It was just storybook from Volleyball Day in Nebraska, winning the Big Ten title, all the run in the NCAA tournament. When it ends, and then you go back and start putting things together to approach the next season, how does all that unfold for a coaching staff? How do you guys go about it? I'm sure it's different every year, right?
Yes, it's definitely different every year, depending on just the long season, how things go. Obviously, the way things end are the freshest in your mind. So for us, when we were reflecting back, we remember that last loss, obviously. A lot of people remember that. But we had so much support and so many people coming up to us and just talking about our season. Obviously, you mentioned it was a storybook. And so we had to, as coaches and as a program, remind ourselves just how special that season was, because that last kind of loss really overshadowed a lot of amazing things that we did. Like you said, Volleyball Day in Nebraska and the Big Ten title, and just having such a young team that went as far as they did. We had to take a step back and remember all of those things. And so in the spring during beach and in the beginning of our indoor season, we tried to really celebrate our culture and our history and how we got to that point that we were at last year, and just remember all of the Huskers who came before us, whether it was even our sport or just being a Nebraska athlete, how special it is. So we really tried to reflect back on all of that and remember all the positive things. And then on the flip side, obviously you come so close in the finals. The margin of error is very, very thin. So now it's how can we find a way to be 1% better, because that's what it comes down to in the end. And if we're lucky enough to be in the Final Four and in the finals, we're talking minor details now at this point. So our big push since January and since we lost in the final is, what are those little tiny things and those areas where we can make huge growth to help us kind of get over that last little hump at the end? How can we find those and identify those and present those to our team?
Culture was a word that we had heard a lot throughout spring. And, I think maybe from the outside, people are like, oh, the culture's there. It's Nebraska volleyball. But it seems like, and even Coach Cook addressed like the importance of, no, it's got to constantly be worked on. Can you maybe talk us through that and why that's been such an emphasis for this team this spring?
I think the big thing about culture is you can't ever give up on it or think that it's perfect and you don't have to do any work on it. So one example I always use is that every team, every single year is different, whether there's people returning or, like for us, only 2 new people with us right now. We'll have 4 total new girls when it comes in August, but every team is so different, and you have to learn about every single team. But with that, you have to think about what has made Nebraska volleyball so successful for so long, and what are the key things that every single team has kind of had and been in their core values, because it's great that every team is a new team and new challenges and new strengths and all of that. But what has kept Nebraska volleyball on top for so long, you have to look back on that every single year, because it's not just, oh, here's our team this year and this is what we're going to do and here's our focuses and all of that. That's part of it. But the bigger part is the 20 plus however many years of just Nebraska being a powerhouse, and those who came before our athletes now, and just remembering that and finding those key things and taking a piece of that with every single team.
It's awesome. So one of the ways that you guys did that is they had like a homework assignment a little bit, where they had to call up some of the former greats and do a presentation on this. Can you tell us about that and how neat that was to be a part of that?
So we kind of had this legacy player project where we had each position was a group, and they got to call former Huskers who were on amazing teams, who were amazing leaders, and who just really exemplified Nebraska volleyball. They called those girls and were able to have conversations, and we didn't give them any questions to ask. We just said, hey, this is open-ended. Talk to them about Nebraska volleyball and what makes it special. And then they gave little PowerPoint presentations. So I wasn't sure how into it they would be. They were kind of asking, well, how do we present? I was like, it's up to you. It's up to you guys. If you want to make like a tri-fold whatever type of presentation or a PowerPoint, do it. Go for it, whatever you want. So there was some good variety, and some were pretty funny, and some were a little bit more, you could see like the perfectionism come out. But it was all up to them. It was all open-ended, and this is something we do in some form pretty much every year. We'll have, especially the new girls, call a former Husker and just chat with them and hear about their experience. But we've never done it where it's a group project and they have to fully present. But those were our legacy players in our legacy project, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So how'd the setters do? Were you proud of their presentation?
They were the perfectionists, as you can probably assume. The funny ones were
Rebecca.
Rebecca and Andy, theirs was great. They had pictures and stick figures and all this stuff. And then I was talking with Bergen. She's like, ours isn't very funny. And she was like, I wanted it to be perfect. I was like, I get it. Like, I'm a setter, and Kenna was the same way. It was great.
How did you guys come up with that thought?
Let's see, how did we? I think we were just talking as a staff on what's a fun project and a way to kind of close out the spring season, because we don't ever just want to play and leave and just forget about everything we've learned. And culture was such a big push. So I think we had discussed what's a great fun project and how can we do it and make them have ownership over it. And so kind of just through discussing, we came up with a fun idea and built on what we've done previously in previous years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So cool. And funny that when you said there's a perfectionist and it was a setter group.
Yep.
Speaking of that, what are kind of the challenges that you presented to Bergen Reilly coming off her freshman year? I mean, she just won the Female Freshman of the Year award at Night at the Lead and had so many accolades and was incredible. How do you go about approaching, okay, now we're going into your sophomore season, what we need to tackle here in the spring to set up for an even better sophomore season?
Yeah, that was a big point of emphasis for us, just with being a freshman starter and, like you said, All-American, all of these things. How can you get better? And we challenged every single person on our team that same thing. But obviously, I'll use Lexi as an example also. She's been an All-American all 3 years. So it's like, what are you going to do now? Like, you've done everything that you can do technically. What are you going to do now? So for Bergen specifically, it was more so not even volleyball as much or setting or offense. We worked a ton on that last year, and we'll obviously continue to work on that. But now it's a little bit more of the leadership. So kind of preparing her for the fact that, yes, Lexi and Merritt are our captains, but a lot of times the setter ends up being the one that everyone looks to just because they're out there all the time. And just the nature of the position, that's kind of how it works. And then obviously Merritt and Lexi are seniors this year, so they're not going to be here. So we've talked a lot about that. Just what does leadership look like to her? How does it fit with Merritt and Lexi, and where can she kind of chime in here and there without stepping on too many toes? And I know that Merritt and Lexi don't feel that way, but there's this thing about the label captain, and it's just a little bit different if you don't have that label. So just navigating that, it's a little bit nuanced, and just seeing her style and what she's comfortable with and challenging her, because she's not the most vocal or not the loudest, but when she talks, people look at her and they listen. So just finding ways to kind of be that leader, especially in tandem with Merritt and Lexi.
And how about Kennedy Orr after, she just found herself in such a really big role last year and it was different than maybe what she'd envisioned. How have you seen her build off of that throughout this spring?
She's been really trying to get better every single day. And I think for her, it could be easy to not be that way and just kind of see, like you said, her role and the challenges that she's gone through. But every single day she came in, and I want to commend her for her attitude and her energy every day, because being a 19 to 21, 22-year-old girl, it's obviously hard to control your emotions and be a part of a team where there's a bunch of different personalities. But she really came in every single day this spring and was super consistent and just was that kind of steady rock for everyone. And her and I have talked about this. She wasn't always that way. So to see her growth there and just her stability for not just for herself, but for her team was really, really special.
So I remember talking to Nicklin Hames about this, and I think you and I have talked about this, but with the setters, it's a lot like a quarterback and wide receiver, and there's a lot of work that's done between a setter and their hitters. It's not even throughout the practice time. I mean, it's extra time going and getting shots up or, balls up, throwing passes, whatever, in other sports terms. So what does that look like for Kennedy and Bergen now when they haven't had everybody in the gym? And then Bergen's going to play for Team USA, and it's just kind of a little bit different, I guess, to navigate this summer.
Mm-hmm. I think it started in the spring. One of our things as coaches was we wanted them and our girls to take ownership over everything, just be a little bit more player driven. And I think there's times where it's easy when you make a mistake or if there's a misconnection to look at your coach and ask for advice or ask for help. But our push this spring was like, you guys are the ones on the court. You guys chat through it. Let us know. If we agree or disagree, we'll let you know. But you guys are the ones who are out on the court. So that's where that relationship piece you talked about comes in, whether it's on the court, off the court, just in that kind of feedback loop. we really encourage them this spring specifically. You guys talk about it. We'll hear it. We'll see what's going on. And then, like I said, agree or disagree. So I think that just has been really beneficial, and we can see them talking through it and them discussing and problem solving on their own. And so that base has been built. And then obviously in the spring and in the summer, they're doing open gyms on their own. So there's no coaches there at all. So they need to have that skill. So I think we build a good foundation this spring on, there weren't really many new attackers other than Skylar, and so I think that was good for them to kind of talk through. And then when Taylor and Layla get here too, we'll have to do that all over again in the summer. So I think they learned really well how beneficial that was, and then they can bring that into the summer.
What is that like? Can you just, from your experience, talk us through what's that like where you do have that just time where it's maybe just you and a couple people in the gym and just over and over that repetition, just getting to know how people, I guess, like it on the court and where you want it, where they want the balls, all that?
Yeah, I think as a setter, you figure it out by doing it, not always by asking. Because I know sometimes there's a hitter who might think they want something specific, but then the end result isn't always matching up with what they're saying that they want. So I think a lot of it as a setter, it can be difficult, but you figure it out just through reps and on your own without even talking to them at times. But then obviously that communication is a big piece about it. But those reps in the summer are so beneficial because there's no one there telling someone how it should be. It's like you kind of just figure out what feels good, and that's a huge part of just that setter-hitter connection is feeling. And sometimes we have a standard for what our sets should kind of look like. Everyone's pretty similar, and then there's little variations here and there for each athlete. Obviously, all athletes are different, so we're not going to have one perfect set for every single person. So I think that time in the summer and just when you're getting extra reps on the side outside of playing 6-on-6 is so beneficial.
One of the other storylines over the spring I wanted to ask you about was Allie Batenhorst, and she decides to transfer to USC. But it was just such a neat relationship to see because she's going to graduate from Nebraska before she transfers. She played beach. She was still around in the gym. And I know she's means a lot to a lot of people in this program. But this day and age, when you see a lot of times when someone enters the transfer portal, it's not a good relationship and all of that. But how special was that to kind of have her around for another semester and just to be able to have that when it's not always the case?
I think you nailed it saying that she's really special to a lot of people, and anyone who's met Allie just knows how bright of a personality she is and how much love and how much heart she has for the people around her, and especially she's been with her best friends for the last 3 years. And like you said, everything was on great terms, and Allie chose to leave for the correct reasons. And I think, like you mentioned with the portal, people are going in and out and going multiple times, and that's just kind of the age we live in now with that portal being open and that type of thing. But it's Allie left for personal reasons and what she thought was best for her, and I know it wasn't an easy decision for her, but I think because of that, we were able to keep that relationship. And we, like you said, we talk about culture and we talk about all of that, and Allie's been a huge part of that for the last 3 years and even years before that when she was committed. So I think the relationship was great. There was no bad terms, anything like that. So of course we wanted her to kind of stay in our gym and play beach and help us out. And then she got to stay in and play in the spring with us. And I think it was really special for her to get to be with her friends and the people that she loved for a little bit longer and train. And it's not the first time we've had someone stay in our gym and train also. Callie Schwarzenbach played with us and ended up playing in our spring match because we needed her to. And so I think that just speaks about this culture that we've talked about for a lot today and just how special it is. And it's never super transactional. It's everyone loves each other and we want to build our culture every single day.
It's amazing. All right, camp season coming up. How important are the camps that you guys have here throughout the season to what this program continues to do year in and year out?
Camps are amazing. They sell out like that every single year. It blows my mind, and I know that there's so much work that goes into planning them, making sure that we've got the dorms, we have a camp store, we need food and all this stuff. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but I think for our state and for our fans and for our athletes who work the camps, I think it's such a cool thing to do where we have girls coming from not just Nebraska anymore. We always say at the beginning of every camp, like, who's the furthest away? And we have California, Wyoming, Florida, everywhere. So it's really, really special to have the opportunity for our athletes to meet young girls who want to be like them one day. So I think outside of just being able to coach and have those summer camps and see recruits for us sometimes, I think it's amazing just what it does for our fan base and all the little girls who are looking up to Nebraska volleyball.
You like doing camps?
Yeah, they're fun.
It seems like every time I go in there, there's so much energy. When you walk in the summer, it's just, so much going on, people going in and out. It seems like a fun atmosphere and like you said, some of these young kids that might be the closest that they'll get to it.
Half the time we tell the girls, like, hey, we want you to be good coaches, we want you to bring energy, and we want you to do this, this, and this. But half the time, the girls who are at camp just want to hang out with the Huskers. So we're like, be social. If they want to just kind of chat with you and ask you your favorite color or whatever, go for it. Like, it's not, obviously people come there to get better also, but a lot of them, you just see the way they stare when the Huskers walk in and just like, oh, you're on my court. They get so excited. So that's honestly a huge piece of what it's all about.
Okay, what does recruiting look like for you guys right now and throughout the next couple of months?
So May is dead period. There's not much we can do with recruiting, not really any travel or anything like that. But June is when everything kind of opens up again with going to tournaments and traveling. And then June 15th is when we can talk to juniors in high school. So that's the first time we can really chat with them on the phone or anything like that outside of if they were on our campus for a camp or something like that. That's the only other time we can chat with them. But that opens up June 15th. So as you can imagine, our phones are going off all day. We've got Zooms and all of that fun stuff. And then there's just more tournaments all summer long. There's nationals and just other little tournaments here and there. And we have the opportunity to go to club practices and go see practices rather than just games. So once June hits, it's a lot more travel coming up for us.
It's awesome. So Team USA too, we've also seen lots of news about that. There's lots of Huskers that are going to be traveling this summer, competing for Team USA. What does that do for this program? How important is it for this program? And when you have athletes that are able to come in and go on and balance playing both collegiately here and trying to make a name for themselves on the national stage?
I think we have a great relationship with Team USA. Obviously, Jordan is on staff with us now. We have a ton of Huskers who were on the previous Olympic roster and who, like you said, are on these rosters coming up. So I think that relationship is just amazing, and it's been so good over the years to see just the opportunities that Husker volleyball players get. And it's definitely going to be a grind for those guys who have to train and train hard and then be gone for an extended period of time. And then if they make the team, then they go on a longer trip too. So it's definitely going to be a little bit of a grind, and they're going to have a busy summer. But I think it's great work for them to get to know other players and to have to work through different situations or run a different system than they're used to here at Nebraska. And so it's a really good challenge, I think, both mentally and physically, because physically, first of all, it'll be tough with travel and two-a-days and all of that fun stuff. But I think mentally the benefits that they gain from being a part of a different team is huge.
So all that being said, now that you talk about what's been done and then you have some newcomers coming in, the two that you had mentioned, and then the Team USA in and out of the gym, what does the next couple months look like and the camps, all of that, for this team to continue to build during this time?
It'll be a lot of work. It's not going to be easy, but I think so. Taylor and Layla have been at their previous schools finishing out before they graduate, and we've really challenged them and our current players to stay connected throughout that time. So we saw Layla when we were out in California. I know Lexi and Taylor are really good friends. They're both from Chicago. So we've challenged them to start working on that and building those relationships right when those guys verbally committed to us and told us they wanted to be Huskers. So I think, like I said, that foundation is built, and then in the summer, they're going to have to be on FaceTime, and they're going to be chatting with each other, and they all have this big group chat. So they're super active in their group chat and just sending funny stuff and all of that. But I think it'll be work on relationships and staying connected, and then those that are still in Nebraska getting good reps in the gym and still training super hard. And I think everyone will be at kind of a different place, but we'll have to all stay connected. And camps honestly help out with that because everyone's there grinding together all day long. And then they have the ability to kind of train together between sessions. And it's really fun because all the camp kids will sit up in the rafters and eat their lunch and watch the Huskers train. So It's really fun, but it's not going to be easy by any means, especially with 2 new girls coming during the summer, and Taylor will be with the national team training at some point, so it'll be work.
All right. Well, one other piece of news I didn't even run by you that if it was all right for me to ask you about since you've been on, you got engaged. You're planning a wedding. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It's been fun.
I was about to say, how is it? Because some people really like it, some people don't. Have you learned a lot? Did you have some help? Did you get some advice?
Oh yeah, I have an older sister who's married, and brother and sister-in-law who've been married for a while, and just tons of friends who have gone through it. And so Kenzie Maloney actually just got married this last weekend, so learned a bunch from her, and she was great, and it was so fun. But yeah, it's been fun, and there's definitely a lot more that goes into it than you would ever know, and it definitely costs a lot more than you would ever guess. So that's part of it, but it's been fun.
So you're a perfectionist. Have you been a perfectionist in the planning process?
Definitely. I'm not always the most organized, but with this I am. But I'm like, I need to reach out to every single person. I need to know everything, and then I need to look at every detail. I have spreadsheets, paper, everything. So I'm working on it, but I have a lot of help and a lot of good people in my corner.
Okay, so you got advice and help. So if somebody's listening in and needs some advice, what would be your number one advice when they start planning a wedding?
Ooh. I guess start earlier than you think. I started right away. I got my venue right away, and now it's like, but stay on it, because I'll tell a funny story. It's not super funny, but AJ is my fiance. He played football for Nebraska as well, and we've been dating for like 9 years. And so we started off, we're like, okay, wedding planning Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we're either going to go out to eat or sit down at home and plan this wedding. We've done like 2 of those. It was like the first 2, and we've kind of fallen off. So stay on it. Set a schedule and stay on it.
Well, congratulations to you and AJ, and we'll have to maybe do like maybe a check-in every so often when you're on the podcast to see how it's going.
That would keep me in check, so maybe we should do that.
So thank you so much for your time, and good luck with camp season, everything else, and we'll hopefully have you back on again soon.
All right, thanks. Sounds good.
That is Kelly Hunter as a part of the Dig, powered by Emeritus. Emeritus is proud to power Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching, and as always, make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode of The Dig right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.